Have you ever woken from a dream so intense that, even with your eyes open, you felt the heat of flames burning your chest? Imagine yourself before a burning altar, a throne of fire that doesn't intend to punish, but calls for something much greater, your total surrender. That's how I woke one morning, overcome by a sense of urgency so profound that, for a moment, I doubted whether I was dreaming or had been transported to another spiritual dimension. Have you ever experienced this? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover may surprise you, and perhaps even challenge everything you thought about prophetic dreams and visions of spiritual warning. Since childhood, I've had vivid dreams, but none have come close to feeling as real as the one in which the fire seemed to form words in the air, as if the burning altar itself were whispering instructions to my soul. With each blaze, I felt an insistent invitation. Total surrender, absolute surrender. It wasn't simply a call to change a habit or abandon a fear. It was a call to surrender my life into the hands of something greater. To leave behind all hurt, all resistance, and walk with renewed faith. And if you too seek understanding about how to interpret a spiritual vision received in a dream, this account will illuminate paths you may not have yet explored. Have you ever felt a restlessness in your heart that can't be explained simply by the hustle and bustle of everyday life? We often miss precious signs because we don't understand the symbolism behind a prophetic dream. In my case, the burning altar symbolized purification. The fire, with its scorching heat, melted away the layers of doubt and fear I carried. Each spark seemed to say, "It's time to break free. It's time to break invisible chains." What you'll discover now may surprise you when you realize that symbolic fire, so present in biblical narratives, is not just destruction, but primarily transformation. Upon awakening from that dreamlike experience, I felt my body still pulsating with the dream's energy. I wrote down every detail in my notebook: the color of the flames, the shape of the altar, the inner voice that seemed molded from embers, demanding surrender. It was then that I understood the importance of paying attention to dreams as channels of divine communication, especially when they involve prophetic elements. And if this resonates with you, if you've ever felt a similar uneasiness, leave a comment sharing your experience. You are not alone on this journey of interpreting spiritual visions. Over the next few minutes, we'll delve into the symbolism of fire, the urgency of a call that can't be ignored, and how to translate prophetic dreams into concrete steps for change. I'll also discuss the signs that accompany these visions of spiritual warning, and how to discern whether what you dreamed is truly a divine message or just the agitation of a tired mind. And if you don't already follow this channel, subscribe now and activate the bell, because here we explore dreams and visions with depth and respect. Prepare to discover why that burning altar, which seemed to demand sacrifice, was actually the portal to a renewal of faith and purpose. In today's video, I'll share testimonies from people who, like me, had warning dreams and found in the symbolic fire the impulse to sincerely surrender to the divine. And I'll tell you right now, some stories are so impressive they'll challenge everything you believe about the boundaries between the physical and spiritual worlds. Now, take a deep breath and allow this text to create in you the same flame of curiosity that ignited in me when I experienced this prophetic dream. In a moment, we'll understand how the fire that burns in the dream can become fuel for a transformed life. But before we move on, reflect. Are you prepared to hear what this burning altar has to say to you? If this call resonates in your heart, if upon hearing about that throne of fire, you felt a spark of curiosity or recognition, don't let it pass you by. Comment. Hear what touched you most about this story and share any dream or vision you've experienced. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people who also seek to understand these profound spiritual signs. Furthermore, if you feel this content adds value to your faith journey, give the video a like. It shows that we're together on this journey of transformation and help spread this message of surrender and renewal. And, of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future reflections and testimonies. Your conscious presence here makes all the difference in the continuity of this work, allowing more and more people to receive this word of hope and encouragement. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. From the first time I felt the heat of the flames, still in the shadows of my dream, I realized I was facing something that went beyond simple dream symbolism. Over the past few years, I have dedicated myself to studying accounts of spiritual visions and interpreting prophetic dreams. Whether through reading sacred texts or through dialogue with brothers and sisters of faith who have shared extraordinary experiences, this wealth of research and practice has given me a solid understanding of how the divine often uses intense imagery to communicate hidden truths to our spirit. Thanks to this journey of investigation and discernment, today I can confidently affirm dreams like the one about the burning altar are not mere coincidences of the human mind, but powerful invitations to genuine transformation. Along the way, I realized that interpreting a prophetic dream requires more than a superficial analysis of symbols. It's necessary to cultivate a mindset of active listening, allowing each detail to reverberate in the heart, and comparing the signs received with universal principles of faith and truth. In the specific case of the throne of fire, I found echoes in ancient passages that speak of purification by fire and the call to total surrender, as if the Creator wanted to use the flames to purge doubts and reveal a higher purpose. Between journal entries and moments of prayer, I developed a personal method that combines faithful dream recording, contextual research, and the principle of confirmation through signs in real life, which can manifest in everyday situations, in unexpected ways. This authority I share with you comes not from vanity, but from much searching and practice. There were dozens of recorded dreams, conversations with theology professors, nights of study in which I compared different spiritual traditions, and, above all, the certainty that divine revelation often occurs in the language of dreams. When I found similarities between my dream and the accounts of other dreamers, ordinary people, just like why I realized a pattern. Fire appears to indicate a turning point, a moment in the journey when courageous decisions must be made and the hidden truth that has been sleeping in the soul must be embraced. Decisions. This word carries enormous weight when we think of total surrender. The fire, in the dream, seemed to say that it wasn't enough to adopt superficial measures, change behaviors halfway, or seek temporary solutions. It was necessary to consciously choose to abandon old habits, face deep-rooted fears, and trust that, behind the heat of the flames, there was a benevolent purpose waiting to be revealed. From this perspective, I realized that the transformation we so desired doesn't happen by chance. It is the fruit of a genuine encounter with our own limitations and a vow to relinquish the control we insist on exerting over our lives, and it's precisely this impact on the mind and heart that makes these prophetic dreams so fascinating. When we return to reality, we often bring with us not only visual memories, but also decisions that need to be materialized. For me, this meant adjusting my prayer routine, dedicating more time to inner silence, and seeking out supportive communities that could welcome and guide my process of change. It's not about magic formulas, but rather an ongoing journey, in which each revelation, however frightening it may seem at first, becomes a stepping stone toward spiritual and emotional growth. As I investigated this dynamic, I discovered that the secret lies in observing the behind-the-scenes aspects of the dream, the subtlest emotions that emerge when rereading the story, the unexpected connections with real-life events, even small coincidences that serve as confirmations. And it is precisely at this point that I want to invite you to reflect. How often do we ignore powerful messages simply by not listening to what's behind the scenes? True surrender doesn't occur the moment we wake up, but the moment we decide to look within, recognize that something needs to change, and act on the call. Now, as we continue exploring this fascinating territory, I want to emphasize that all the knowledge I share has been built from real experiences and a firm commitment to truth, whether revealed aloud or whispered through fiery symbols. And even though the burning altar only appeared in my dream, it reveals a universal principle. When God chooses to speak, He doesn't choose to ignore our human logic. He uses powerful imagery to convey the message beyond any barrier. After all, it's not in our comfort zone that we experience great transformations, but at the precise point where we are invited to surrender to something greater. Finally, it's worth emphasizing that this search doesn't have to be solitary. By sharing stories, studying them, and seeking understanding, we build a community strengthened by faith and a desire to comprehend the supernatural. Whether you've experienced a similar dream, are simply curious, or seek to discover more about your own inner journey, know that there is a universe of revelations waiting to be explored, and it is precisely in this spirit of discovery that we will move forward, delving even deeper into the symbolism of fire, the dynamics of transformative decisions, and the behind-the-scenes of prophetic visions. Comment below. I'm on this journey too. I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Since the earliest sacred narratives, fire has been a central element in expressing the relationship between the divine and humanity, functioning both as an agent of purification and as an irresistible invitation to inner transformation. Remember the burning bush that spoke to Moses in the desert. That bush, which burned without being consumed, became a portal to a new mindset of leadership and mission. Just like Abraham, who before the sacrificial pyre saw his faith refined by the intense heat of a commitment to the Almighty, we are invited to live decisions that depend on a heart willing to surrender completely, without measure or reservation. This ancient symbolism echoes directly in the burning altar that appeared in my dream, where each flame seemed to call my spirit to a journey of surrender and hidden truth, revealing that the embers exist not only to destroy, but to refine what is deepest within us. In the prophetic tradition, we find the prophet Isaiah walking behind the scenes of the temple, carved by human indignity, until he saw the Lord seated on a high and sublime throne, wrapped in garments resembling burning coals, as if the fire itself were the ultimate expression of the divine presence. By crying out, "Woe is me," he demonstrated the urgency of a radical transformation in his mindset, an impact so powerful that it changed the course of his life. From that moment on, his mission became the herald of a new era, where the fire of grace would burn in hearts, consuming fears and bringing profound revelations about the holiness of God and the urgency of courageous choices. Elsewhere in the book of Daniel, we see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego thrown into a fiery furnace for refusing to worship idols. The apparent tragedy turned into triumph, for when the king looked, there were not just 3 men, but 4, like a son of the gods. This scenario illustrates how fire, when driven by divine purpose, reveals a hidden truth: the Creator's constant companionship, even in the most extreme afflictions. This same force seemed to pulse in my dream of the burning altar, inviting me to recognize that, although the flame may frighten, it is not there to annihilate, but to reveal that we are never alone in our search for transformation. The New Testament also reinforces this transformative metaphor. In the Acts of the Apostles, on the day of Pentecost, the Holy Spirit descended upon the disciples in tongues of fire, inaugurating a new stage of courage and communion. Each small flame hovered over the head of each brother, symbolizing the ability to illuminate truths and propel faith beyond cultural, social, and emotional barriers. That vision, though distant in time, speaks directly to my dream, as the burning altar represented not only a call to sacrifice but a promise of renewed power to undertake a journey of surrender and purpose. When you're going through a crisis or facing a crossroads of decisions, it's natural to seek references that validate your calling. Therefore, I understand that the emotional impact of that dream arises precisely from the fusion of ancient biblical narratives and the personal experience of a spiritual reality. As I wrote down every detail, I realized that the flames not only illuminated the altar but also cast shadows in the corners of the soul, revealing repressed emotions, ancient fears, and a resistance that needed to be confronted. This experience resembles the refining of gold, where the precious metal, subjected to fire, loses its impurities and reveals its intrinsic purity. However, understanding the symbolism is not enough. It is necessary to allow the revelation to transcend the dream world and manifest itself in everyday life. This is how I began seeking small confirmations: a phrase read in a book, a testimony heard from a fellow believer, an unexpected sign. In our daily lives, these confirmations function as behind-the-scenes pieces of the divine call, offering the assurance that the message is not lost in the realm of imagination but finds an echo in practical reality. And it is at this point that the parallel with prophetic visions becomes even more evident. For both past and present, fire symbolizes that which must be purified, transformed, and ultimately offered to the greater purpose. In my journey of interpreting prophetic dreams, I've noticed that each fire dream carries a pattern. First, the disturbing announcement, then, the inner crisis, and, finally, the invitation to implement a new mindset, grounded in faith and understanding. In my case, the burning altar emerged as the authoritative voice ordering total surrender, but also as the welcoming presence promising renewal and spiritual growth. By understanding this cycle, it becomes clear that this is not a simple psychic experience, but a spiritual dynamic that demands concrete and ongoing decisions. And it is precisely this duality between purification and commitment that makes biblical fire such a relevant tool for our growth. It encourages us to abandon old attitudes, to face the hidden truth we often prefer to ignore, and to embrace a transformation that, although uncomfortable at first, leads to a life of greater clarity, purpose, and alignment with the divine. Each flame on the inner altar represents an area of our existence, requiring light and heat to melt resistance and reveal the gold hidden within. When we allow the symbolism of fire to inspire our daily choices, we begin to realize that the spiritual journey is not linear. It passes through valleys of shadow and mountains of revelation, but each stage is part of an ongoing process of refinement. However, real transformation occurs when we combine spiritual understanding with practical commitment: prayers, readings, fasting, acts of forgiveness, and acts of service. This union between heaven and earth is what gives authenticity to vision and dream experiences, transforming them into agents of lasting change. Now, as we delve deeper into this connection between biblical imagery and my personal account, it becomes clear that the burning altar is not an isolated symbol, but rather part of a rich tapestry of symbols that transcend generations. In each flame, we see the heat of purification, the call to decisions that define our mindset, and the invitation to delve into a journey of revelations that surpasses human understanding. This is the hidden truth that invites our hearts to open and embrace the transforming fire of the Spirit. Comment below. This makes sense to me. No, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a dark corridor where only the pulsating heat of a fiery throne guides your steps. In my dream, each step was accompanied by a soft crackle, as if the embers breathed a life of their own, inviting me forward toward a greater presence. As I reached the blazing altar, I felt my robes almost meet flames, and even with my eyes closed, I could see the intense red of the flames dancing in hypnotic patterns. like a living flame telling a story of transformation. It was impossible to ignore the impact of that scene. The fire burned, not to destroy, but to reveal, as if each flaming tongue illuminated a hidden truth hidden in the shadows of my being. Heat invaded my body from the inside out, like a wave, melting the layers of protection I had built over the years. Each spark that emanated from the throne seemed to carry a message, pulsing with the rhythm of an ancient heart that called for courageous decisions. I felt sweat drip down my forehead, mixed with a sense of almost sacred reverence, while the throne seemed to invite my spirit to an unreserved surrender. In that instant, the dream's narrative became tangible. The embers, which could have been symbols of destruction, transformed into instruments of purification, refining my mind and demanding a posture of profound surrender. The space around the altar wasn't large, but it resonated with a powerful vibration, as if the air itself held secrets from the spiritual world. Behind the scenes, I could perceive hues of orange and gold, interspersed with warm silver reflections reminiscent of living flames reflected in polished metal. It was such an intense ambience that, even upon awakening, my body continued to feel the heat, as if the dream had left a noticeable mark on my skin. This dreamlike experience had a direct impact on my inner journey, as I understood that, in dreaming about fire, we were not faced with a mere symbolic artifact, but a divine tool to drive concrete change. As the throne burned, I could hear a subtle, almost imperceptible sound, a whisper of wind mixed with the constant crackling of the flames. This sound seemed to amplify every revelation the fire offered, as if inviting me to pay attention to details that, at first glance, might go unnoticed. I noticed that the flames, instead of rising in chaotic blazes, danced in almost choreographed rhythms, as if obeying a predefined purpose of conveying balance between eradicating impurities and confronting ancient fears. It was then that I understood the decisive power that a prophetic dream can instill within us, summoning us to choose a real transformation that transcends human logic. With each passing moment, my heart beat faster, echoing the urgency of that invitation. The sight of the fiery throne was simultaneously majestic and intimidating, provoking surges of emotion and revelations that, upon awakening, impelled me to seek them in my vigil. I realized that, there, my humility and courage were being tested. For the fire demanded not only recognition but also a shift in mindset, a redefinition of priorities that reflected my commitment to the spiritual journey unfolding before me. I can't help but mention the striking contrast between the vivid flames and the total darkness that enveloped everything around them. This darkness, as a backdrop, amplified the fire's brilliance, making every detail clearer and every decision more decisive. As I reached out to touch the warm air, I felt chills that went beyond the physical, reaching layers of my mind and soul where long-held doubts and unfaced fears lay. And it was at that moment that I understood that intense emotions, when exposed by symbolic fire, demand concrete actions, prayer rituals, moments of silence, deep reflection on the choices that shape our destiny. As I described this scenario, I realized that the power of such a vivid dream lies in the way it imprints a spark of change in consciousness, an irresistible urge to seek meaning and truth in each revelation. Every detail of the throne of fire, from the flickering glows on the edges of the seat to the heat that seemed to pulse like a living organism, became a metaphor for a transformation that goes far beyond what meets the eye. It's an invitation to abandon old strategies of emotional protection and embark on a path of continual renewal, accepting that sometimes it's necessary to endure the heat of testing to emerge purified. Accessing this dream experience revealed, to me, how the dream environment can be the stage for transformative encounters, where external symbols are reflected in internal decisions and abstract concepts become tangible. On the throne of fire, I saw my inner conflicts exposed, my insecurities illuminated, and my resistance confronted. And I understood that the true magic of a prophetic dream lies not in the visual spectacle, but in the impact it leaves on our journey, the commitment to act with faith, discernment, and openness to the revelations yet to come. Now that you've followed this vivid and vibrant description of my dream, perhaps you're beginning to glimpse how a simple dream episode can become the catalyst for real and profound change. From this point on, the challenge becomes integrating the intensity of the dream into daily reality, allowing the symbolic flame to guide our decisions and inspire our mindset. Fire, after all, reveals not only what must be left behind, but also what needs to be embraced within ourselves for genuine and lasting transformation to occur. Comment. This makes sense to me now. I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Remember those nights when your whole body seems to awaken along with your soul? In the dream where I found myself before the throne of fire, it was exactly like that. My heart raced as if it wanted to leap out of my throat, my chest numb with heat, while every cell seemed to vibrate in a frenzy of life. It was a paradoxical sensation, in which fear mingled with an almost sweet reverence, as if I were before something greater than my own thoughts could encompass. I felt a tingling sensation run up my spine, invading my arms and down my fingers. bringing with it a chill that cut through my body, while at the same time the heat of the flames insinuated itself within, demanding instant decisions and awakening. A profound transformation within me. The impact of that vision wasn't limited to the dream world. Upon waking, the sound of my own accelerated heartbeat echoed in the stillness of the room, as if the vault of my mind had been broken open and revealed ancient secrets. My mind, previously accustomed to the comfort of routine, was suddenly challenged to expand its mindset, to see beyond the limits of material logic. Each breath I took seemed to amplify the urgency of that call. It was an invitation to delve into revelations that lay hidden behind the scenes of ordinary consciousness, in the shadows where doubts and fears lie, preventing us from moving forward. As I described this journey, I realize how the body holds memories that the mind alone could not decipher. The cold sweat running down my temples, the metallic taste invading my mouth as if the very atmosphere were charged with promises. All of this formed a sensory mosaic that amplified the truth hidden in that prophetic moment. Each heartbeat seemed to carry an urgent message. It's time to decide. It's time to surrender. Surrender, in that context, was not a defeated resignation, but rather a foundation for genuine transformation, an essential step toward building a new version of myself. With the tingling sensation that invaded my fingers, I became clear that the throne of fire symbolized a choice between maintaining old emotional armor or allowing the flames to demolish the walls of the past. It was like living behind the scenes of a spiritual narrative, where every sensory detail, the abysmal heat, the aroma of incense mixed with smoke, the almost humming sound emanating from the air itself, functioned as a silent script for a definitive change. In this climate of intensity, neither space nor time seemed to exist. Everything boiled down to that sacred moment of decision. And this was no mere dream spectacle. The dream had a profound impact on me, a mixture of awe and reverent fear that made me question the way I had been approaching my own journey. Transformation, I later understood, requires much more than momentary motivation. It requires every cell in the body and every fiber of the mind to align with the new reality unfolding. It was as if my racing heart were a drum beating the rhythm of an urgent call, while my body tingled, reminding me that change happens at the meeting point between the physical and the spiritual. That night, I experienced the bodily dimension of a divine calling. My skin felt hot, but the sweat dripped cold, and my nervous system seemed on high alert. This sensory conspiracy awakened in me the awareness that prophetic dreams are not limited to the mind, but manifest throughout the organism, challenging our comfort zones and forcing a reconfiguration of our mindset. Each crackle of fire resembled an extra heartbeat, each pulse of light an invitation to embrace a journey that would take my faith and my life to a new level. I still vividly remember the feeling of reverence mixed with sacred fear, a tension that, far from paralyzing, incited me to move forward. It was a fear refined by respect and admiration for the power of symbolism that pushed me to make decisions I'd previously postponed. I understood that, just as gold is purified by intense heat, the soul must pass through symbolic fire to emerge lighter, free of impurities. And this lesson was imprinted not only in the dream, but also in the body that woke with a start, reminding me that every choice has a price and a power of transformation. Revisiting this experience, I realize how the body functions as a faithful translator of hidden truths that the mind alone cannot grasp. The tingling, the heat, the cold, the irregular heartbeat, everything was aligned with a single purpose, as if each sensation were a fragment of a larger spiritual mosaic. This alignment between sensations and divine messages is what makes the interpretation of prophetic dreams both an art and a craft, requiring sensitivity to capture not only the visual content but also the physical echo it provokes. As I recount these sensations, I feel my heart beating strongly again, as if the dream were still unfolding within me, expanding my understanding of the power of symbols. With each beat, I remember that revelations are not isolated events, but turning points that can redefine our trajectory. And the power of a prophetic dream, especially when imbued with symbolic fire, lies in its ability to push us toward courageous decisions, toward a transformation that goes beyond the superficial and reaches the roots of who we truly are. This awareness, this intersection of body, mind, and spirit is the true legacy of that throne of fire. Emerging from the dream, I realized that total surrender was not a destination, but the beginning of an intense journey, marked by small and large decisions that would shape my mindset and strengthen my faith. Every tingle, every sigh, every accelerated heartbeat became a reminder that the spiritual journey requires complete presence, a willingness to face the symbolic heat, and the courage to embrace the changes that lie ahead. Now, as I prepare to share how I've put these sensations and transformations into practice in my daily life, I'm convinced that the power of prophetic dreams lies precisely in this fusion of bodily emotions and spiritual insights, a constant invitation to explore the depths of the soul. By allowing the body to speak, we give voice to truths we often ignore, and it's in this visceral dialogue that true magic happens. And if you've ever felt your heart beat like a drum announcing something grand, You know what I'm talking about. Comment here. I'm on this journey to now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. When I think of the burning altar that appeared in my dream, I can't separate the image of fire from the concept of purification. Fire, since time immemorial, has functioned as an agent of transformation. It consumes what is impure, refines what is raw, and reveals the hidden essence of what is being treated. Thus, when I visualized that altar enveloped in living flames, I saw a clear invitation for every part of my life to be subjected to a divine heat, capable of melting doubts and solidifying decisions I had been postponing. This scene, despite being dreamlike, had a profound impact on my mindset, as it demonstrated that genuine transformation requires total surrender. Nothing remains intact when we are willing to pass through the fire. In many spiritual traditions, fire symbolizes a test of faith. In my personal experience, I felt the urgency of surrender was as intense as the heat radiating from the throne. It was as if the flames established an invisible deadline, a countdown that imposed a decisive choice. In this scenario, I realized that the altar represented not just a static symbol, but an active protagonist in the journey of inner renewal. The urgency imprinted on the flames challenged me to abandon defensive postures and adopt a posture of openness, allowing the embers to consume empty passions, old attachments, and everything that was holding me back. The symbolism of the burning altar also refers to a sacred space, a meeting point between the human and the divine, where offerings and sacrifices are made. In the dream, I felt that this was not a sacrifice imposed by an oppressive force, but a voluntary surrender, an act of courage to place on the altar what we value most, be it dreams, relationships, projects, or even our own will and trust. That, by surrendering everything, we would receive a multiplied return in spiritual growth. This radical renegotiation with the inner self is precisely what many seek when they talk about life transformation, but few are truly willing to experience it. As I mentally contemplated the image of that altar, I imagined the embers leaping, like sparks of revelation, illuminating parts of my soul where irrational fears lay. In each spark, I perceived a subtle message about the hidden truth that longed to be revealed. Limiting thought patterns, unhealed emotional wounds, profane commitments disguised as normality. It was at that moment that I understood the profound impact a prophetic dream can have. It brings to light an urgency that surpasses human reason and echoes in the depths of our will, urging us to make choices with expanded awareness. Exploring this dream narrative made me reflect on the courageous decisions I had to make after awakening. The metaphor of fire taught me that, to reach a new level of faith and conviction, one must embrace the discomfort of the initial crisis, that burning heat that seems to want to consume us, but which in fact prepares the ground for a harvest of revelations. Each stage of that experience led me to realize that the burning altar, more than an indicator of destruction, was a portal to a higher level of intimacy with the divine, an invitation to peer behind the scenes of a process of refinement that depends not on human merits, but on the willingness to surrender to a greater purpose. Symbolic fire is reflected in scripture and mystical accounts as a portrayal of the transformative presence of God or transcendent forces. In my dream, the flame enveloping the altar seemed to pulse in time with a celestial heartbeat, synchronizing with my own, enforcing an alignment between the sacred and the profane within me. This synchronization brought a powerful revelation. We often go through rites of passage without realizing it, but when the burning altar appears in our dreams, we are summoned to a conscious pact, where every decision counts in directing our journey toward a life of profound meaning. I cannot fail to mention the contrast between the solidity of the altar and the fluidity of the fire that consumed it. This contrast symbolizes the inevitable tensions in any journey of transformation. There is the firm structure of principles that sustain our journey, and there is the dynamic element of fire that questions these foundations when they no longer serve growth. In the dream, I felt the flame testing the altar's resistance, suggesting that nothing is fixed for those who strive to evolve. Beliefs, patterns, and even identities need to be revised, exposed to the heat of revelations so that, after the test, they are reborn stronger. With each conscious breath, in the dream, I perceived the breadth of this symbolic calling. It was as if purification by fire was not only about renouncing what is negative, but also about receiving a renewing anointing, an anointing capable of enabling practical transformations in daily life. The embers then left glowing marks on the altar, like inscriptions of revealed truths. These marks were imprinted on my memory and began to serve as a compass for my choices, reminding me that without a willing heart, a renewed mindset, and firm decisions, there is no real progress. This dynamic between purification and the urgency of surrender led me to revisit fundamental concepts of faith and commitment. By embracing the urgency of fire, I understood that every moment of hesitation could mean missing the opportunity to access a deeper level of revelation. The spiritual journey often uses moments of crisis to propel us to break through internal barriers and advance into unknown territories of insight and empowerment. And this discovery made me realize that, just as fire reveals the quality of the metal, the burning altar reveals the authenticity of our deepest longings. As I described this symbolism so vividly, I realized that the dream gave me a new perspective on the value of conscious decision. Each flame required me to choose, maintain the spiritual armor that sometimes gives us a false sense of security, or give up everything to receive a greater truth, even if it meant entering the furnace of the unknown. This dichotomy between comfort and expansion is a universal dilemma, but few have the sensitivity to grasp the exact point at which the flame becomes a portal of revelation. And therein lies the power of a prophetic dream. Throughout this reflection, I witnessed how the burning altar became a living symbol of integral transformation, a symbol that transcends the limits of the unconscious and shapes reality when boldly embraced. It taught me that to experience continuous revelation, one must maintain a state of vigilance, ready to offer sacrifices of will and keep the heart aligned with the greater purpose. And it is precisely this disposition that differentiates a fleeting, mystical experience from a lifelong commitment, where decisions made under the heat of the embers produce lasting fruits of faith, wisdom, and character. And here, I'm on this journey to now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. In the silence preceding surrender, I heard an inner voice as gentle as a divine whisper, yet with an unshakable firmness that seemed to echo in the most hidden corners of my soul. This voice didn't come from outside, but rather arose from a place deep within me, where genuine desires and hidden truth intertwine in a dialogue that only pure intention can uncover. It was a loving call, like that of a friend who, upon noticing our weariness, extends a hand of care and guidance, but also carries the authority of one who knows the way and accepts no half measures. In that moment, I realized that total surrender was not a cruel demand, but an invitation to freedom, liberation from the invisible chains that prevented me from embracing the transformation I myself secretly yearned for. As my heart pounded, I felt each word of that voice penetrate my resistance. It was as if it were saying, "The time has come to leave behind old habits that fuel insecurity and doubt. Abandon masks and defenses. Surrender to the warmth of divine purpose." There was no judgment in her words, but a firm compassion that reveals a deep care for our spiritual well-being. The urgency of this invitation made me rethink every decision I had made up until then, those small, everyday choices that, together, shaped my mindset and determined the course of my journey. I understood that total surrender would not be an isolated act, but the turning point capable of redefining all my future decisions. Feeling this call was like watching a behind-the-scenes performance at a grand show, where the invisible scriptwriter reveals crucial details few notice. In my case, the burning altar wasn't there to punish me, but to show me how profoundly I could transform myself. The voice insisted, "Allow yourself to be purified. Allow yourself to be polished by the symbolic fire. Recognize that parts of yourself need to be offered so that the new can be born." This invitation to surrender sounded almost paradoxical. By relinquishing, I would gain. By shedding old patterns, I would receive new impulses of strength and clarity. It was in this contrast between giving and receiving that I understood the true impact of conscious surrender. It opens space for revelations that challenge our previous understanding and inaugurate a new hidden truth, previously shrouded by the webs of fear and indecision. In the heat of that dream, my inner voice became a safe but demanding guide. It gently and decisively affirmed that I needed to abandon any pretense of controlling the process. For true transformation happens when we trust in the power of the calling and embrace the journey with courage. It was then that I felt my emotional defenses melt away, one by one. Resistance to forgiveness, attachment to past mistakes, fear of facing my own weaknesses. Each barrier broken down by the symbolic fire represented a silent victory that expanded my mindset and strengthened my faith, creating fertile ground for deeper revelations yet to come. Total surrender, as I discovered, is not a state of defeat, but a gesture of profound wisdom. When we surrender to the altar what we believe defines us, we allow the fire to reveal the gold hidden amidst the ashes. This metaphor transcends the dream world and applies to our daily actions. Choices that seem small, like forgiving someone, giving up a personal plan, or changing a thought pattern, can trigger a sequence of transformations capable of altering the course of an entire life. The voice insisted on this, urging me to see each decision as an opportunity for growth, each moment of surrender as a step toward a journey of renewal. Even after waking up, I felt the echo of that voice reverberate within me, reminding me that surrender has no expiration date. It's a state of mind that needs to be refreshed each day, with each choice, with each challenge that arises. In my daily life, I discovered that maintaining this posture requires practice and discipline. Setting aside moments of silence, meditating on the words that arise in my heart, reflecting on the revelations of dreams, and seeking concrete signs that confirm the purpose of surrender. This is how transformation ceased to be an abstract concept and began to manifest itself in concrete actions, from adjustments to my prayer routine to courageous decisions to talk to people I had previously avoided, always driven by the conviction that surrendering to the call was the greatest act of courage possible. I also realized that total surrender impacts not only the individual but also the entire environment around them. When we let go of internal resistance, our energy shifts in frequency, influencing relationships, projects, and even the opportunities that arise. It's as if, by lighting the flame of conscious surrender, we create a magnetic field capable of attracting spiritual resources and transformative practices that were previously out of our reach. This ripple effect, or the backstage of a true inner revolution, is part of the legacy of the burning altar, a legacy of revelations that extend far beyond dreams, echoing in the fabric of real life. These discoveries taught me a fundamental lesson. To embrace the power of the call to total surrender, one must cultivate a mindset of constant openness, where each difficulty is seen as an invitation to deepen, and each achievement as confirmation that decisions made in the heat of the dream have the potential to bear significant fruit. The inner voice, loving and steadfast, remains like a beacon, reminding us that transformation is not linear, but a journey filled with unexpected revelations and character-shaping trials. It is in this context that we reinvent ourselves, making courageous decisions that reflect a renewed commitment to the hidden truth that burns within our hearts. As I assimilate all this, I continue to learn that total surrender is not a destination to be reached, but a continuous process of surrender and discovery. Each time I choose to offer to the symbolic altar something I once held tightly, I notice new shades of wisdom blossom, new keys to understanding the mysteries hidden in the shadows of the unconscious. And even when the inner voice seems momentarily silent, I remember that the fire burns at the core of my being, ready to reignite the urgency of decisions that lead to a life of impact and authenticity. And so, with my heart still beating with the beats of surrender that began in the dream, I remain attentive to the signs that arise in my daily life, ready to welcome each revelation as part of a great journey of transformation. Comment: I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic. Over the past few weeks, while refining this script, I've come across stories that reinforce the certainty that we are not alone on this journey of interpreting spiritual visions. I remember Anna, a literature professor who once dreamed of a bridge of fire crackling beneath her feet. She told me that upon waking, she felt the same tingling I described, a clear sign of urgency that led her to reconsider important life choices, such as how she treated colleagues and students. The bridge, in her dream, symbolized the transition to a new cycle of transformation. The fire, meanwhile, revealed the hidden truths she would need to face: the fear of exposing herself as a leader and the need to strengthen her decision-making mindset. In sharing her experience with me, Anna highlighted the impact that feeling part of a community of seekers had on her courage to make drastic decisions, such as admitting her own shortcomings publicly and apologizing to those she had unwittingly hurt. In another case, Joe, a ride-hailing app driver, reported dreaming of a road flooded with flames converging on a glowing gate. As he emerged from the dream, his heart was pounding so hard that he had to write down every detail before his memory faded. For Joe, the gate represented the threshold between his old routine of complaints and discouragement and a new phase of service more connected to others. He felt the same urgency for total surrender. As the flame screamed for a change in mindset, he needed to abandon the comfort zone that had made him ignore the importance of acceptance and empathy in the profession of driving people. After that dream, Joe began studying compassionate communication techniques, transforming his work into a journey of daily revelations, and found that, by changing his internal attitude, the work environment also changed, with passengers more open to deep conversations about faith, purpose, and life decisions. These accounts from ordinary people echo the pattern I observed in my own history of prophetic dreams. The sense of reverence intertwined with awe emerges as viscerally as discovering that, behind an intense vision, there is an urgent calling. In Hannah's case, the burning bridge symbolized the urgency of rebalancing authority and humility. For John, the flaming road was a reflection of the behind-the-scenes process of redefining values, where fire served both as a test of faith and an agent of purification. Each testimony strengthened my conviction that the symbolism of the burning altar, present in my dream, is part of an archetypal language that links purification, transformation, and the revelation of hidden truths. These narratives also illuminated a key aspect of prophetic dream interpretation: the importance of recognizing the bodily and emotional impact that accompanies the vision. Both Anna and Joe described rapid heartbeats, cold sweats, and an almost audible crackling sensation, as if the very air around them were charged with meaning. These sensory signals, which we often overlook in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, act as internal codes that guarantee the veracity of the message. They are clues that lead us to understand that the flame is not there to punish, but to propel us on a journey of bold choices and a deeper commitment to truth. By comparing these testimonies with my own, I recognized a revealing pattern. Warning dreams almost always present a tripartite structure: a disturbing announcement, an internal crisis, and an invitation to surrender. At the height of the experience, the body becomes the stage for a sensory orchestra, where the heat of symbolism blends with the cold of fear, refined by reverence. This dynamic creates a favorable scenario for transformative decisions, because when we are confronted with powerful images and invasive sensations, our minds open to options that previously seemed unattainable. It is at this point that the journey becomes truly meaningful, as the dream ceases to be an isolated event and becomes a catalyst for concrete change. And it's not just the power of the vision that matters, but also the supportive environment we build to explore and validate these experiences. When Anna shared her dream with a group of colleagues, they became allies in the process of applying the revelations to their daily lives. Joe, in turn, found in a spiritual mentor the guidance he needed to translate the fiery impact of his vision into healthy habits of prayer and reflection. This behind-the-scenes support and exchange of experiences showed me that transformation doesn't happen in a vacuum, but in the exchange of testimonies, in sincere dialogue about fears, in the sharing of strategies to keep the mind aligned with the call received. This is how I understood that the power of a prophetic dream multiplies when it is embedded in a network of people willing to walk together, each bringing their own decisions and learnings. As I revisit these accounts, I realize that the journey of interpreting visions is made up of cycles of revelation and practical continuity. The urgency of surrender I felt before the burning altar unfolds in multiple daily decisions. How to dedicate time to meditation. How to choose gentler words. In difficult conversations, how to use personal experience to inspire others to seek the hidden truth in their own dreams. Each reflection becomes a step in a journey that embraces the idea that life is a continuous backstage of revelations, where the impact of an intense vision can reverberate in actions that promote community transformation. In this sense, connecting with others who have experienced warning dreams has taught me that a mindset of transformation is not a privilege for a few, but a universal invitation. When we share our stories, we broaden the reach of revelations and hold in our hearts the certainty that, although each dream is unique, the pattern of purification by fire and the call to total surrender repeat themselves like ancient melodies that play symphonically in the hearts of those willing to listen. This harmony between individual stories creates a magnetic field capable of attracting new experiences of faith, opening doors to even deeper revelations, and reinforcing the sense of community that makes the journey less lonely. Now, as I continue to explore these patterns and prepare to reveal how we can collectively apply the lessons learned from these testimonies, I invite you to connect with your own experience or with any warning dreams you've experienced. Sharing these stories is not only a courageous gesture, but an act of building a transformational mindset, where each piece of feedback strengthens everyone. Write it down. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. When it comes to discerning prophetic dreams, I've discovered that there's no magic shortcut, but rather a journey of preparation and practice that requires the full commitment of heart and mind. It all begins before you even close your eyes. Take a few moments to pray, asking for patterns of transformation and a mindset aligned with divine purpose. In this moment of silence, realize that you are opening the door to an experience that transcends the physical world, inviting the Holy Spirit to work behind the scenes of your consciousness. Prior prayer is not an empty formality, but a fundamental gesture that creates a receptive environment, preparing your soul to capture truly impactful revelations. Upon awakening, don't let routine take away the vividness of what you experienced. Instead, grab the notebook waiting by your bed and jot down every fragment of memory you can recall. Describe colors, sensations, internal dialogues, even the smallest nuance of the Shan, be it the glowing embers of an altar or the muffled sound of a soft voice asking for surrender. This initial record serves as the starting point for a conscious, decision-making process that will set the tone for your interpretation. The more detailed your account, the easier it will be to perceive patterns and hidden truths that might escape a superficial glance. After letting your notes breathe for a few hours, return to the text with the word in hand. Comparing the dream's content to biblical passages is a crucial step in validating the message received. It's not about forcing symbols into place, but rather seeking echoes of the same themes: purification by fire, the urgency of surrender, an invitation to trust. By noticing convergences between your dream account and sacred narratives, you gain the confidence to affirm that the vision carries a seal of spiritual authority. It is at this point that the hidden truth begins to reveal itself, as Scripture provides a reliable map for understanding the signs that manifest in the mind while we sleep. However, even after this test of coherence with the biblical text, it is essential to seek direct confirmation from the Holy Spirit. This step does not occur with a grandiose outcry, but in the stillness of a heart that has already learned to hear the divine whisper. Set aside moments of silence throughout the day to meditate on the words that emerged in the dream and allow an inner certainty to strengthen or dissolve. Often, like an invisible filter, the Holy Spirit acts by subtly confirming what deserves to be pursued and silencing what is merely a reflection of personal desires or the processing of common emotions. By following this path of prayer, note, comparison, and confirmation, you will be practicing a true craft of discernment, developing a sensitivity that goes beyond the superficial and reaches the roots of your own emotions and aspirations. The transformation that emerges from this process is not immediate, but happens progressively. With each dream analyzed, your mindset becomes more refined, your decisions firmer, and your confidence in receiving genuine revelations grows. It's like polishing a diamond. With each polishing, it reflects light more intensely, and so your ability to see transcendent messages infiltrates your daily journey. However, it's important to remember that discerning prophetic dreams isn't a solitary act. Sharing your insights with trusted individuals, whether a spiritual mentor, a study group, or a friend also on this journey of revelation, creates a collaborative environment that broadens the scope of your interpretations. Behind the scenes of this support network, unexpected insights emerge that enrich your understanding, as each perspective offers a new perspective on the same dream symbol. By hearing similar accounts, you establish connections between your personal experiences and universal patterns, solidifying the certainty that you're not walking in isolation. Over time, you'll find that discerning prophetic dreams becomes an integral part of your spiritual growth routine. By practicing prayer before bed, detailed journaling upon waking, comparing with the Word, and internal confirmation, you develop a discipline that aligns body, mind, and spirit with a common purpose of discovery and truth. The revelations that emerge from this practice can range from practical guidance for everyday life to profound insights into your role in the faith community. Each insight, however subtle, has the potential to have a lasting impact on how you face challenges, make decisions, and embrace your journey of transformation. Now that you know this step-by-step guide, it's time to put it into practice and observe how the dream environment can become a laboratory of revelations, where every detail plays an essential role in the process of inner refinement. The harmony between prayer, journaling, study, and confirmation creates a virtuous cycle of wisdom and revelation that, day after day, strengthens your connection with the divine and expands your perception of the hidden truths waiting to emerge. And, of course, this practice intertwines with everything we've explored so far: dreams of fiery thrones, symbols of purification, the urgency of surrender, composing a coherent roadmap for a life of continuous and transformative discovery. Comment: this makes sense to me now. I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Soon after that shocking dream about the burning altar, I realized that true transformation begins with small, everyday gestures. Waking up with my heart racing and my mind still immersed in those symbolic flames, I felt it was time to let go of the fear that was holding me back. Behind the scenes of my routine, I decided to adopt a prayer discipline that went beyond memorized words. Every morning, before tackling my daily tasks, I sought a moment of silence, a sincere conversation with the divine, asking for strength to change my attitudes and make room for the revelations that lay ahead. This daily commitment served as a spiral of renewal, as each conscious decision to stand before the inner altar reinforced my mindset of surrender and paved the way for concrete actions. In the early days, I felt the immediate impact of simple choices. Instead of reacting impatiently to an unexpected email, I took a deep breath, mentally replayed the reverent atmosphere of that dream, and responded calmly and empathetically. Each conflict situation became an opportunity to practice relinquishing old patterns, replacing automatic reactions with reflection on a hidden truth, that inner voice inviting me to embrace a welcoming attitude. Gradually, I saw that the journey of transformation lies not only in big decisions, but in each moment we choose to keep our hearts aligned with the purpose of purification. It was then that I realized that, to fully live the legacy of the burning altar, it was necessary to extend the symbolic warmth to interpersonal relationships, dissolving resistance and fostering communion. To reinforce this shift in mindset, I sought the support of a faith community that shared similar revelations. Attending weekly meetings gave me access to stories from others who, like me, felt their spirits called to radical change. In these meetings, we shared our conclusions about warning dreams and jointly analyzed the emotional underpinnings of each vision. This exchange of experiences opened new perspectives. I understood that practical application is not a solitary journey, but a collaborative effort in which each testimony enriches the process of discernment and strengthens the commitment to decisions made under the symbolic heat of the dream fire. Gradually, I incorporated reflection and writing exercises into my routine, recording not only dreams but also emotions triggered by the memory of the flames. By recognizing patterns of fear, whether the fear of failing projects or the insecurity of emotionally exposing myself, I was able to confront them intentionally. Instead of ignoring the discomfort, I began to embrace it as a sign that something within me required attention and change. This practice of daily self-reflection served as a process of refinement, where each entry in the notebook became a fragment of transformation. directing my decisions toward more courageous and authentic actions. It didn't take long for the impact to extend to the professional realm. When leading meetings, for example, I felt a deep urge to bring up important topics that I'd previously put off for fear of upsetting someone. Inspired by the invitation to total surrender, I began to be more transparent, offering opinions honestly and welcoming feedback without defensiveness. This approach not only strengthened working relationships but also created an environment of trust where difficult decisions were made in a way that was more aligned with solid values. The internal transformation, evident to the outside world, proved that the symbolism of the burning altar can transform an entire culture of coexistence and productivity. On a personal level, I decided to invite friends to Bible study and prophetic dream-sharing sessions. These conversation circles became the beating heart of a collective discovery movement, with each participant sharing their own stories of warning dreams or visions of spiritual admonition. Hearing stories ranging from symbols of fire to signs of purifying water, I realized that spiritual reality dialogues with the multidimensionality of our emotions. This plurality of experiences reinforced in me the importance of an open mindset, capable of embracing different manifestations of transformation and drawing valuable insights from them. Another essential step was establishing a weekly ritual of fasting and meditation, inspired by the urgency I felt before the altar. I chose a meal to dedicate hours of reflection and seeking inner confirmation, seeking to connect with the gentle yet firm voice calling me to surrender. This period of abstinence strengthened my body and, above all, my spirit, placing my decisions under the light of a discipline that combined sacrifice and expectation of revelation. Each week, my notebook filled not only with dream records, but with small signs that validated the message, meaningful coincidences, profound feelings of peace and clarity at decisive moments. As I integrated these practices, I discovered that the true impact of transformation depends on keeping the heart in tune with the greater purpose. Each ritual, however simple it may seem, acts as a connecting thread between the physical world and the archetypal truths that emerge in the unconscious. The journey, at once intimate and communal, brought to light decisions that triggered cascading changes. Old projects were revisited with new vision. Past relationships were revisited with a forgiving and compassionate gaze, and my own calling became clearer, illuminated by the symbolic embers of the dream. All of this taught me that the practical application of a prophetic dream is not limited to predefined methods or rituals, but is based on the willingness to live in a constant state of reverence and openness. Transformation unfolds when we allow bodily sensations, intense emotions, and mental revelations to intertwine with everyday attitudes, creating a cycle of continuous renewal. And as we progress on this journey, we discover that each choice, each prayer, and each dream recording contributes to a hidden truth that becomes increasingly tangible. Realizing how much these practices have changed my routine, my mindset, and the rhythm of my decisions, I recognize that the fire that burned in my dream has become a guiding light for my life. And, just as embers illuminate paths in the darkness, the attitudes built from this calling echo in every aspect of my existence, indicating directions of faith that materializes in concrete actions. Comment: this makes sense to me. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. To imagine the altar ablaze without reflecting on the personnel changes it provokes in us would be to miss the essence of this entire transformation process. And you, what would change in your life? If you felt this intense calling, have you ever stopped to think that sometimes we resist powerful dreams because they expose us to the hidden truth that insists on remaining beneath the surface? When I accepted, with an open heart, the loving and firm invitation of the inner voice that asked me for total surrender, I realized that true faith is not sustained by conventions or comfortable scripts, but by daily decisions that reflect an authentic commitment to what our spirit recognizes as essential. In the heat of that vision, I understood that letting go isn't synonymous with permanent loss, but rather with creating space for something new to emerge. Perhaps, for you, this means abandoning thought patterns that fuel insecurity, or letting go of toxic relationships that erode peace. It could even be a professional project that, despite its promise, no longer resonates with your inner passion. By recognizing these signs, I discovered that each renunciation brings relief and clarity, creating a mindset willing to embrace revelations that previously seemed distant. This process of voluntary self-denial strengthened my sense of purpose and taught me that surrender is not an act of weakness, but a gesture of profound wisdom. Reflecting on the impact of this call also involves questioning daily habits. For example, how often do we fail to silence our cell phones to listen to our own inner voice? Or how many hours do we allow our minds to wander aimlessly, ignoring the subtle invitation to prayer and meditation? Incorporating the symbolic fire of dreams into concrete practices, whether turning off notifications, jotting down reflections at the end of the day, or dedicating time to readings that nourish the soul is part of a journey of transformation that transcends the boundaries of the dream world and comes to life behind the scenes of our daily lives. deciding to surrender to the divine calling. As that flaming throne demanded, implies a redefinition of priorities. If we previously prioritized comfort and security, now we are invited to value growth and discovery. This might mean waking up earlier to cultivate spiritual discipline, choosing words that edify rather than criticize, or engaging in services that promote collective well-being. The urgency of the burning altar engraves in the mind that every choice, no matter how small, carries the power to reshape our journey. Along the way, I've realized that the most impactful decisions come from the combination of courage and vulnerability. Embracing vulnerability means admitting that we don't have all the answers and being willing to learn from each step. Courage, in turn, is acting even when the future is uncertain. It's surrendering to that symbolic fire, the desire to control our own narrative, trusting that, in the process of purification, a new version of ourselves will emerge, one more aligned with the truth that burns within us. Therefore, I invite you to reflect. In what areas of your life do you still keep the flame extinguished, resisting the transformative heat? What masks do you carry that you need to shed to experience full freedom? By answering honestly, you will be opening yourself to revelations that can go far beyond what your imagination can grasp. 4. Just as fire refines metal, refined surrender reveals the gold hidden in the essence of each of us, and this journey of self-discovery and surrender doesn't have to be solitary. Sharing reflections and learning with trusted people creates a fertile environment for sustaining lasting change. Behind the scenes of everyday life, the exchange of experiences illuminates paths we might not have seen alone. Sharing stories of surrender and renewal strengthens the conviction that we are participating in something greater, a grand symphony of revelations that echoes across time and space. As I delve into this invitation to personal reflection, I reinforce that true transformation is sustained by the harmony between thought, emotion, and action. Every decision to abandon an old habit, every minute dedicated to silent prayer, and every sincere conversation with those who share the same desires constitutes a step toward a life marked by real impact. This is how the dream of the burning altar ceases to be merely a dreamlike experience and becomes a roadmap for tangible change, a compass that guides us amidst our hectic routine. As this reflection takes shape in your mind, feel the symbolic warmth prompting not just a moment of attention, but a shift in perspective. Total surrender, as challenging as it is liberating, presents itself as a gateway to a deeper faith, a mindset of discovery, and decisions that transform every aspect of existence. And even if the invitation seems bold, remember that the inner voice that calls is, at the same time, the best guide we can have. Uniting love, authority, and clarity. Comment here. I'm on this journey to now. I want to delve even deeper into this subject as we revisit all these elements: the burning altar, the urgency of surrender, the sensory revelations, and the dynamics of the body reacting to the symbolic fire. We realize that everything converges on a decisive point: the need to translate this experience into concrete action. It is in this space of connection between our inner life and daily choices that the dream's message gains real strength, helping us build a mindset of continuous transformation. When we give voice to those intense sensations, to the tingling that runs through the body and the heat that insists on remaining even after we wake, we begin to see the world through the lens of someone who knows that the hidden truth is not confined to the unconscious, but pulsates in every detail of everyday life. In the midst of this journey, we learn that prophetic images are not mere nocturnal reveries, but loving invitations to a deeper faith, a lifelong commitment reflected in the decisions we make throughout the day. Each revisited parameter, whether the automatic attitudes that distance us from peace or the resistance that prevents us from renewing relationships, finds new meaning when illuminated by the symbolic embers of the altar. In this movement of transformation, power resides not only in the grandeur of the vision, but in the courage to bring it to light, share it, reflect, and act according to the calling meaning in each breath of inspiration. That's how I realized, behind the scenes of my own existence, that true spiritual alchemy happens when we allow the symbolic fire to pass from dreams to the concrete paths of living. The metaphor of the burning altar ceases to be an ethereal setting and becomes a behavioral script, a manual of procedures for refining the soul and strengthening faith. When I decided to face old limiting beliefs head-on and replace hesitation with decisions grounded in trust, I saw my own impact reverberate. Conversations previously postponed became liberating dialogues. Stagnant relationships received the breath of forgiveness and reconciliation, and projects I'd previously thought timid were revitalized by a burning inner motivation. This process of reinvention, however, does not occur through a single moment of revelation, but through a sequence of daily decisions, small acts of surrender, that, accumulated, transform the course of an entire life. There is a unique beauty in the journey that unites the visible world with the invisible, in the way we ritualize prayer at dawn, how we record dreams upon awakening, and, above all, in the ability to welcome the Holy Spirit as a faithful partner. On this journey, it is this alignment that translates prophetic dreams into practices of love, service, and communion. demonstrating that authentic transformation springs from the encounter between the sacred and the practical. And it is precisely in this encounter that the call to action becomes inevitable. When you feel, deep within your being, the urgent call of the symbolic fire, you realize that remaining inert would be wasting the opportunity to live an active and vibrant faith. So, even if the burning altar seems distant from ordinary reality, it is precisely through the simplest choices and act of kindness, a moment of silence, a word of encouragement, that the message takes shape and makes all the difference. With each gesture of surrender, the renewing heat spreads, warming hearts and igniting new embers of hope where before there were ashes of doubt. Now, as we reach this point in our conversation, I want to extend a sincere invitation. If you've ever had a dream like this or feel this calling pulsing within you, don't let this message be lost in silence. Share your experience in the comments. The fragment of a dream that still burns in your memory, or that sense of urgency you can't shake. Your story could be the spark that illuminates someone else's path. Because by sharing stories, we strengthen our community of seekers who are on the same journey of spiritual transformation. If you've ever had a dream like this or feel this calling, leave a comment below and share this video with anyone who needs to hear this message. Subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss our next videos on prophetic visions and spiritual transformation. And if you've stuck with me this far, know that your presence makes all the difference on this journey of discovery and transformation. If this content brought clarity, courage, or simply warmed your heart, click the like button to let me know we're connected and motivated to move forward. Take the opportunity to leave a comment saying, "I'm with you until the end," or "This message was for me," so I know you truly immersed yourself in this experience. And if you want to continue exploring these prophetic signs and deepen your understanding even further, there's a video here that complements this topic in a practical and inspiring way. Click and stay with me there. I look forward to continuing this journey with you.